Huck in Boston, back from the mountains, back from Rome. Blood is up in an ugly gray flood tide, riding first the blue line, then the red, both colors fittingly sanguinary. I've returned from the past, saddled with a welter of inherited imperatives. The burdens of family are like those of empire, fraught with overreach, deceits, infidelities, and betrayals. It's hard to know what to avenge first. We dredge up history, hoping it will illuminate the present. It never does. It mires us in ancient feuds, mocks us with all that was never settled or set right. History is time out of joint. The train affords us interstitial moments between here and there. We are nowhere, and so our perspective changes. We regard our lives as a Greek chorus observes the floundering of protagonists in a tragedy. Maybe it is the only time we see ourselves clearly, when we're betwixt and between, committedly uncommitted, our agency momentarily disembodied, as we step off stage and travel from one place to another. I know a Huck from a handsaw, but that's a different play. This is more complicated. Sitting here, seeing my stillness framed against the blur of subway walls, I apprehend the futility of this conflict. No time for indecision, no time for reflection, no innocent virgins offing themselves, no poisoners. No one is clean, no one is conveniently dirty. Everyone's a disappointment. There'll be no catharsis at the end of all this, just a dirty job, poorly done. Action makes us drunk, gives us the illusion that we can accomplish far more than we actually can. We imagine that we can really play physician to Denmark. I want no part of it, this cheap Hollywood hubris. But the flute player laid it down. Neutrality is sacrilege, a failure to meet one's fate. We're actors for whom the highest expression of human agency is to read our lines. Krishna spoke to Arjuna at length.
No one is so wise as to know everything. Come on.
The counsel of my higher self was compressed into rushing moments of acceleration and deceleration before I hit State Street. In the aching sobriety of inaction, I can see how hopeless it is. War is coming. I'll be there. It's unavoidable, as inevitable as the progression of these stations.
Are you inarguable?
Ineffable. I'm ineffable. How much punctuation can I fit into one sentence? You probably wouldn't even notice if I had put it there. In between this sentence and the last sentence, I put 14,000 commas that you couldn't see. It's gonna be in the transcript. Trust me.
And then what does the villager do?
The joint burns down to the villager.
The joint burns down to the villager.
There'll be no catharsis.
There will be no catharsis at the end of all of this. As the clocks find their pace yet again, it all slows.
And it is a wall around us and it's opaque. The joint burns down to the villager.
The joint burns down to the villager.
And then the villager's son has to take up his holy quest of finding a better home or some shit like that.
And it is a wall around us and it's opaque.
I wouldn't mind if I was simply screaming into the void one more time.
And then what does the villager do?
The joint burns down to the villager.
The joint burns down to the villager. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
I consent to nothing. I'll pray to this any day of the week.
The joint burns down, the villager. The joint burns down,
It's time to say goodbye.
There'll be no catharsis at the end of all this.
There will be no catharsis at the end of all of this.
Home from here. On the top of a mountain, and the first thought I have is that I'm glad to be so far away, but still looking at home. I see the billowing silhouettes of buildings struggling to be perceived through peak summer heat. My writing hand records the details most obvious onto paper. Blue sky, city skyline, heat lines, warping light. I drove an hour to get here, and walked about 3 miles of wide gravel trail to get high enough to see Washington, D.C. I found the only mountain in Colorado tall enough to see Washington, D.C. From here, I can't really see the White House. I get the sharp point of the Washington Monument, the dome of the Capitol. Downtown skyscrapers may as well be a model replica on the other side of a warehouse with a blue roof. I won't bother trying to describe any other outlines or shapes. I've told you everything I could clearly make out. I'm getting sick of this view. A bullfly chases me down the side of the mountain. Down the side of the mountain, I kick up rocks that scratch up my calves, that kick up dust, that bandage the cuts in a thin wrap. I try not to think about how empty my water bottle is and how far my car is as my ankle twists 90 degrees and I tumble to the edge of a cliff. Against the edge of the cliff, my chest pounds against granite, pounds like a drum on a sidewalk. I feel my heart tickle my rib cage, a sensation I never want to feel again. And every time I think about it, I feel my heart tickle my rib cage. After that, I didn't care about hiking anymore, and my writing hand was cramping. I limped to my car, hit the engine start button, and crossed my left foot over my right just to use the gas pedal. I didn't plug my phone in or pull up the GPS to get home. I just drove. The day had ended on that cliff, and I wanted to go home. I drove down to the foot of the mountain, the only mountain in Colorado that is tall enough to see Washington, D.C. I wanted to go home, but I didn't want to drive back up the mountain again. I looked around at other peaks, wondering what other cities I could see from there. But I was tired of thinking like that, so I found the first motel at the foot of the mountain. The only mountain in Colorado that can see DC. I got the cheapest room in the basement of the first motel at the foot of the mountain. The only mountain in Colorado that sees DC. And that's where I am now. My writing hand records the details of this cheap basement motel room. Blue wallpaper, pictures of city skylines in cheap plastic frames, lamps that make the room feel cold. This bed that kicks up a fresh blanket of dust when my body plops onto it will make a good enough home for tonight. I decide tomorrow I'll have a new mountain to climb.
But what is dead?
What is dead?
What is dead?
That's my contribution.
Dead.
I'll pray to this any day of the week.
And then what does the villager do?
Burns down, the villager.
Say goodbye.
Joint burns down, the villager.
There'll be no catharsis in the darkness.
Time to say goodbye. I'll pray to this any day of the week.
The joint burns down, the
Say goodbye.
And then what does the villager do?
joint burns down,
There'll be no catharsis in the darkness.
There will be no catharsis in the
I consent to nothing. Time to say goodbye. Pray to this any day of the week. Time to say goodbye.
There'll be no catharsis in the darkness.
There will be no catharsis at the end of all